The Pro de barrages were, or the barrage round, whatever you want to call it, was live, Rob. It was live in the UK for the first time. Apparently, it has been broadcast before, but I don't know when. But certainly in the
It,
time that we've been following proceedings.
I think it was on Eurosport in like 2008 or
Oh,
something like that.
yeah.
Like it was something really niche, and it was like a good 15 years ago.
Just after a bit of kabaddi and maybe before some, what
Trans
was
World
that
Sport,
program? Trans World Sport. Yeah,
which is
unbelievable
still
show.
on air. I've seen
Is
it.
it?
I've seen it on my planner somewhere. It might even be on Premier Sports.
Oh, incredible.
It's definitely there. I've seen it.
What a
Um,
program.
um,
Um,
yeah, it was
yeah,
bloody exciting, wasn't it? I mean, I
it
don't know whether
was
it was
good.
because it was Soy Glen, but the whole of Thursday, I feel like it was kind of like, when you've got a big party or like a in the evening and you're like the whole day is just like your work party or like your big meet up with your mates or something like that, or you've got a train like a really important train to catch to go on holiday. It's kind of like that sort of level of excitement all day where you're like
There's
basically
something at
just
the end of the day
it's something
that's
at the end of the day
distracting you.
that is distracting you and like basically is casting a shadow over the whole rest of your day because you just can't stop thinking about it. And I that maybe it's because it was Sax v our boys, but I was so excited I couldn't think of anything else on Thursday. Um, yeah, it was. I mean, it was really. I mean, fair play to FRUK, to Tim, Joe, and Dougie. And I think there was someone else referenced in the article, wasn't there? But
Yeah, there is a fourth.
Dougie and Joe. I met in San Sebastian. Joe Worsley, obviously, and Tim. I very briefly met in San Sebastian as well. But I was aware of Dougie as a kind of the producer. He does the More Over podcast as well. But yeah, fair play to them for getting it, and also for making it work. I was a little bit apprehensive when it took until about 7:55 to get going. I was like, oh, please, just please say that there's no hiccup and they've not had any bad luck with it or something like that. But once it got going, it worked. It worked, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it was good. It was really good and very yeah, I felt the coverage or the commentary was it's sort of slightly odd, isn't it? Because you're so used to there's so much live sport. You're so used to like TV commentary where everything is kind of stage managed and directed and you have replays and you know exactly what's coming. And you know, sometimes when you hear something over like a YouTube stream, but I thought it was great and thought it came across just very genuine and enjoyed it. And there was a shout out to the Provence seafood stand, which you know
Yeah.
my nemesis. So slightly perturbed to have that rubbed back in my face. But other than that, it was yeah, it was great. As you say, fair play indeed.
And it was a couple of weird games, I think. I think the barrage last year was a little bit like this. A kind of bit of a hammering with one side that had a big budget up against a side that was very much punching above its weight. A very similar kind of parallel to the Grenoble Dax game, albeit not quite as much of a beatdown, but it did feel like Soyengalem's kind of luck had run out almost, didn't it?
Mm,
And there were a lot of references from Joe and Tim to the physicality of Provence and whether kind of Saxby could get parity and what they could do, and then if they could launch their attack. And I think we kind of referenced that yes, Provence has a very big pack and they're powerful, but Soy and Golem have not been, they're not quite kind of get the ball in and out and then fling it about. Then they have shown their own strength up front at times, but it did look like they perhaps had run out of juice a little bit up front. And I think it was a bit of a I mean, it was referenced that they were missing Ben Botica, who might have given them a bit more shape to their attack, which might have helped. But I think Tilsley's not. He's been coming back from injury, and Matisse Lafon has been very good, and his relationship with Artur Prout's been good. But the impact that Tilsley had off the bench in the second half, they could have just done with a lot more of that in the first half. Bit more like physicality and a bit more grunt to get them over
the
the
more
gain line. Someone
ballast,
that,
yeah.
yeah, just ballast. Like when we saw him in January, he was so physical, and it did feel like in terms of the carrying in that first half, it was basically Masibaka or no one, and it's quite easy to shut someone down when you know they're the only ball carrier. And I think Provence got a bit lucky. Like the Bouja try was just a complete fluke. Like
Yeah, yeah.
um albeit
Shins it through off
well,
the north offload.
that is not an offload.
Well,
That
squeezes out.
that is the defender's arm knocking the ball out. Like that
Oh,
he's not he's lost loose
I didn't
carry.
see the slow. I didn't actually see the kind of replay of it. It looked sort of semi legit, but the
It was not a chicken wing offload. And amidst that, very sad to see George North limp off. He kind of got up. I think he got up after that and then went down again, which was yeah. I mean, if you've been out for that long, you probably want to play as much as possible. But he gave it everything, and he looked real good. Inga now looked unreal, both sides of the ball, which we kind of knew was going to be the case. So that was really cool to see a bit more of that. Gopperth still rocking it, and
yeah, what a
I think
player.
probably a player that we haven't talked about that much. And I'd probably slightly reticent to talk about him because it feels very obvious to kind of just name check the one English player that we know plays for them. But Tamana Harrison was unbelievable in that game. And I've kind of shied away from trying to talk about him that much, but you can't not talk about him after this game. He was absolutely phenomenal. Like that was made it was his impact that made it look like Men Against Boys because it did feel like Men Against Boys at times.
Hmm.
And it was Tamana Harrison that was the forefront of that.
Yeah, yeah. He looked a bit bigger and harder and stronger than pretty much everyone in purple.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those. They've had an amazing season, Soil on the Lem. I don't think anyone realistically expected them to finish where they did, probably bar the side themselves, and they've been fully deserved as well. I think they had the best away record in the
Yeah.
league, which I think is really something to be incredibly proud and encouraged by. It's yeah, it's quite something to go and produce results away from home. They have done. They're still one of the lower budget teams, and you know, I think they've got some really good young forwards as well coming through. I think I can't remember the two brothers who we name checked
Oh,
earlier in the year who are
Miran Biano.
yeah
I think
who
that's their name.
yeah they're only gonna get better, you'd hope. But I
Yeah.
think you're right. Unfortunately, did look a little bit men against boys, and it just probably unfortunately shows that the sort of best and the rest in Pro Day there is a little bit of a gap there, as there probably should be with some of the differences in budget and infrastructure and history and all of those things. But it shouldn't distract from an amazing season for Soyonga.
Yeah. Moran Briat, the brothers. But and I thought Hubert Texier off the bench as well, like a player that we kind of referenced last week as being someone to look out for, someone a bit lither, a bit quicker. I thought he made a real impact. He kind of gave the energy that they perhaps gave the energy you want if you're bringing someone on at half time from after a lackluster first half. I thought he was brilliant. But the back row and not just Harrison, but the Piazzoli, who was really physical. I thought they just looked a better team. Malez looked great at tie head as well. Yeah, it was just a bit men against boys. Off
Yeah,
Pralt still looked good and still had a few nice touches. So nice to see a bit of that. But
very good. The real drama though was Friday night. Colomiers Montauban, extraordinary finish, genuine scenes,
it was a weird old
incredible.
game as well, like because they were 14-0 up, Colomiers, within about
6 minutes, was it?
yeah,
7 minutes?
um, which was bizarre. And then just for them to kind of come back, it wasn't the prettiest game, I'd say. It was scrappy, and I think I think Montauban will do well to challenge Brive next week, but incredible drama at the end because there was a lot of chat during these barrage games about the new balls, which I think is absolutely like so mad. Quite like that's just such
What's
kind
the
of doesn't
story?
surprise.
I don't know if I've I've got
They've brought in
this
a new ball and it's not made by Gilbert. So they've been playing with Gilbert balls all
for
season,
the
and
barrage.
they've brought in a new ball for the knockout phase. It's like I don't know why these things happen. Like it's like when you go to a World Cup and it's like, oh no, there's a new ball for the World Cup. It's like great, but why can they now no longer play football normally? Like
The
the
Jabulani.
Jabulani, yeah. Like
The Pro Day de Jabulani was causing
these
all sorts.
these pro day doubles feel or these ones. Do you remember in like the mid noughties? Everyone play in the Six Nations. They all play with Gilbert, but
Italy had
Italy had
the
like a mitre or something like
yeah,
that, or like a
they're
kappa
amazing. They were like
that was like
square.
looked like a rock, and it
Yeah.
was it had that similar vibe. Like I don't think I've ever seen as many kicks from the touchline or like yeah, like touchline conversions like fall short of the posts. Like it looked like no one could kick it. So for Fortunel to slot one from 45 meters, like he didn't. There was a penalty on about like before that was about a similar sort of distance out that he didn't take because presumably it's out of his range. So I don't know what was going on there, but
It was
he absolutely
incredible.
nailed that drop goal. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably, probably a bit of a French rugby badger, and you've probably seen it. But it's the quality of the drop goal is so good. It like side on as soon as he struck it, you're just like, oh my God,
Yeah,
he's absolutely creamed that. And I didn't realize he'd done it basically kicking a trifle over the post from 45 meters. It was you could tell Joe Worsley was obviously the co-commentator, wasn't he? And he was like, "Oh my God, what
I'm
kid?"
going to eat my words.
The only
Um,
slight disappointment was that having given him the big build-up, Bosviel had been hooked, so it couldn't have been him. That would have
I
been.
I watched this on the train back to London after a few drinks, and in my kind of dozing stupor, I saw this kind of Montauban drop goal happen, and I was like, "Fucking Bosville, Bosville's done it! What a legend!" And then realised he wasn't even him. He had a tough game because he's not used to the balls, mate. I'm telling you, it
Yeah,
was if you needed proof that these balls are wrong uns, Bosville struggled. Um, yeah, hopefully they'll go back to Gilbert's next week and Bosville will be slotting them from 70. He did do one um, kind of spiral bomb that made complete mockery of the Colomier winger, which was quite nice to see. Kind of slightly more masterful as you'd expect from him. But yeah, Montauban were not. They weren't fantastic. They were very very sloppy in the first 10, which allowed the two Colomier tries. But it showed enough. I thought the back row, well, not Shea, the South African, forgot his hands. Like he had a genuine walk in the first half that just dropped. Like, and then he dropped a couple of kickoffs as well. But the yeah, it was a proper like he is. It's an open goal. He is given the ball 10 meters in front of the posts with no one in front of him, and he just dropped it. But the other two back rowers, Ringay and Fred Quercy, I thought were absolutely brilliant. Fred Quercy, the breakdown, really physical, captain's effort. But and Ringay is a really athletic player that we've seen bits of throughout the season. Looks a really, really promising prospect. Young 21-year-old, I think he is. But yeah, you mentioned budgets with Provence and Soyuncu. I think Colomiers were 13th biggest budget or 12th.
no,
They were very,
really.
very similar to Soyuncu, whereas Montauban were like 7th. So, and I remember at the start of the season, we kind of mocked Montauban for, what have they done with their big budget? Like they've underperformed. But actually now they've kind of proved the doubters wrong on that front. But yeah,
Remarkable,
Colomier 12th biggest budget,
remarkable to
Soyuncu
think
13th.
they were this time last year heading into the access match and what beat
Yeah,
Narbonne by a point,
yeah.
and now they've got a Pro Day de semi. It's quite the turnaround.
Ivan Rayak, who scored one of the tries this on Friday, was the try scorer, wasn't he? In the
Mm.
crucial try. I actually was meaning to look at. how many players played in that played on Friday, which or maybe ahead of the game when we see the team. It'd be interesting to see how many of them played in that access match last year.
Yeah.
Be quite a few. They've not had that many changes, I don't think.
No. Right, so that then sets up the two semi-finals this week. So Grenoble host Provence
Don't
at
care what
a
anyone says. Grenoble are
sold-out
winning that.
Stade des Alpes. Yeah, it feels like it could be a cracker though, right? Grenoble back to, you'd hope, back to full fitness. They did struggle with injuries a little bit, didn't they, towards the back end?
Their team in the final round was full noise. That
Yeah,
looked very full noise to me. Their home record is incredibly impressive. I will be amazed. I should say like, oh, if they lose, I will eat my hat or something like that. Maybe I need something like that. But yeah, I can't see them not winning that. Their home
yeah,
record is just so impressive.
yeah.
Do
I
you
would,
do
I
you
tend
do
to
you
agree.
agree or
Yeah,
disagree?
I do. No, I do agree, but I don't know. There was a level of aggression and yeah, in Provence's performance that I thought was quite eye-opening. But I think Grenoble that they are a bigger, better, more physical side, aren't they?
Yeah.
And as you say, the home record is brilliant. They've
10,
got
10 bonus points from 15,
they've got
10
some
bonus point
real
wins from 15 wins.
yeah, they've got some real quality. Um, and they'll be rested. And I think that,
Yeah.
that in itself could make a big difference.
No George North. I
Um,
wonder if
no George North.
Drouet will be back for Provence. But
Mm.
um, the other thing about that Grenoble team is that they've
And they've got a
kind of
Rosbiff guest in Sam Davis. So
exactly, yeah, yeah, we got to back them. But I think they've kind of been together a little bit longer. Feels like
yeah,
they've kind of a bit more cohesion. They had the heartbreak of last year. I think they mean business.
yeah. Yeah, very exciting. And then the second semi-final is Brive v Montauban, which you said at the top, Montauban feels like a pretty big ask. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know. Brive have had the odd squeaky game at home, but they just seem too big, too much quality, you would assume. But
I think they they
who
they
knows?
just hit those squeakier games at home were now quite a few months back. They were pretty formidable towards.
Rampaging through the end of the season a bit, weren't
Yeah,
they?
they had a real run of form towards the end of the season. That I wouldn't want to bet. Well, they lost the last game, but that was a complete shags.
Yeah,
Before that, they'd won 7 in a row. So
yeah.
and that includes away games. So yeah, and you're going to be at that game, Richard.
Yeah, slightly bizarrely, slightly last minutely. I'd kind of eyed up this weekend as a potential to squeak one more in before the end of the season. And the one I was looking at was I kind of assumed Carcassonne were going to lose to Chambéry, but our man Johnny McPhillips rather put pay to that. And it turns out trying to get to Chambéry is very difficult out of ski season. And because it's half term, flights are a bit of a disaster as well. But yeah, so did a little bit of sleuthing, bit of sniffing about, and managed to in a bit of a frenzy managed to get a ticket for Brief. Obviously, we went right at the start of the season, although it felt slightly unfinished business. So yeah, gonna head along to that. Got a very cheap flight out of Stansted, and then an even cheaper one back from a place called Rodez, which I'd genuinely never heard of. But I've
Where is
managed
that?
to. It's north of Albi, so the sort of distance between Cast and Albi. But there's some sort of deal on, and I've managed to get a train between Brive and Rodez for €1, which is a 2 hour and 10 minute train. So I don't know. I could be in like a freight train. I might be with actual livestock. I'm not sure, but I'll be at the Stade Amédée Domenech, if nothing else, on the Friday evening.
That I feel like it was a roughly similar weekend that I went to. Maybe it's slightly earlier, but I went to Perpignan last year and had my €1 train to Prague. Maybe it's
Maybe.
like a May
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
possibly. So no double headers this time, but I think I was looking at there are a few options, but the return flights from last day of half term from other places are extortionate, to put it mildly.
Just trying to
But
work
yeah,
out if you could
should
get
be
to
fun.
Chambéry from Brive. Shame it's not at Aurillac. That would have been ideal, wouldn't
Well,
it?
that would have been
Mate,
incredible,
get on the
yeah.
Aurillac bus. Just
It's
pop
getting
to
back.
Aurillac.
It's
Get a lift
I
with
did
Ronan Loughnane.
I did have a look to see if they were doing a supporters bus. I couldn't find one,
Oh,
and yeah, get the flights back were wild. Basically,
yeah,
turned like a very cheap weekend into probably could have had a week away somewhere nicer
yeah.
than Brive, but there we go. We will see. I have slightly ballsed up because I got it. It was all a bit last minute and the accommodation. So I was initially lining up Le Grand Hotel Brive, which was only 50 quid a night, nice 3-star number. I'm now staying at the Golden Cock in the middle of town,
Would you,
Le
would
Coq
you, would
d'Or.
you, would you call me?
Which looks like some sort of Alan Partridge travel tavern, but apparently the people who own it are really lovely. So,
Oh, I bet they are.
yeah, yeah. We'll see. I'll report. I'll try and do some. I know I'm not quite as prevalent on the socials, but I'll try and do some. Something at some point on Friday if I don't get held hostage in Le Coq d'Or.
And
We
if
will
you
see.
are in Brive and go hunt out Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, I've got a spare ticket, so yeah.
definitely
If you're
go
listening
hunt
to
out
this and you
Richard.
happen
Yeah.
to be in Brive, hit us up. All right. Probably a quick word then. Aurillac Chambéry. Where's your money in that?
Well, it
Got to
might not
bat the lack,
matter.
surely.
I'll go back in the luck. Yeah,
Got to
I
bat
think
the
they've got a
lack.
bit more. They've got a bit more international quality, haven't they?
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, definitely. Um, okay, does that wrap up Pro Day? Yeah, I think it does for another week.